What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and welcome back to another Grotsmas video. We are back talking about the new detachments coming out every day for December 2024. This has been a roller coaster ride of a series. We've laughed, we've cried, and now we've got one of the coolest detachments to have arisen from Grotsmas, the Adeptus Custodes Solar Spearhead. Now, I'm going to keep doing this series as long as y'all watch these videos. So please drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it around to your favorite group chat. Tell everyone to watch it and talk about how cool this Adeptus Custodes detachment is. I'm also going to be live after this video goes live over on Twitch at twitch.tv/TacticalTortoiseTV. So if you go, give me a follow over there. After this video goes live up on YouTube, I'm going to be streaming a game with this list. So please come hang out with me and we'll see how the Solar Spearhead goes. Now, why is this so cool? This is the Dreadnought detachment that we have all been asking for. A lot of people have been playing Dreadnoughts in Shield Host and in other detachments just to try to make these Custodes Dreadnought work, but their base profiles are not good enough. They were not designed particularly well, and this detachment does its absolute damnedest to rectify that situation. And in this way, I frickin' love this style of detachment where they are taking a unit archetype that is underplayed and significantly underpowered in their respective factions and using these new digital detachment releases in order to try to buoy up that style of unit. This thing is absolutely awesome. So exactly why is it so cool? Let's talk about the detachment ability. First of all, it's basically the Crusher Stampede that we have at home. It gives you, while you're not battle shocked and at starting strength, so you have not suffered any damage, vehicles from your army that are not aircraft get +2 objective control. This is almost a copy paste of the Crusher Stampede detachment ability. I actually wouldn't be surprised if we saw Crusher Stampede get modified to use this wording. As long as you haven't taken damage, you're +2 OC. Given that we're generally talking about Dreadnoughts that are OC 3 or 4, this is pushing them to 5 or 6, which is great when just early game contesting or controlling, especially the mid-board objective. Otherwise, if you are below starting or half strength, you start to reroll your attack rolls. If you're below starting strength, so you've suffered any wounds, you reroll your hit rolls of 1. If you are below half strength, you instead reroll hit and wound rolls of 1. This ability is great. Usually these vehicles are tough enough to kill that they will be suffering a little bit of damage before they go in, and the one failure point in most Adeptus Custodes attack profiles is that hit roll. They oftentimes have access to wound rolls or lethal hits or just really strong strength characteristics already, but they hit on 2s with very limited access to hit rerolls. This shores that up immensely. This affects all vehicles, not just walkers as well, so this is going to affect things like Caladius grav tanks, who are firing twin-linked weapons at you, and if you've hit them but haven't killed them, they're also rerolling their hit roll, which could give them more lethal hits and more chances to convert those then twin-linked wound rolls. These abilities are absolutely amazing, and given the fact that Custodes defensive profiles tend to be really strong to begin with, relatively high toughness values and high save characteristics, it is very difficult to one-shot their tanks, so they are most likely going to get access to these. In addition, the Moritoi Ancients grants your walkers an enormous buff, +2 movement characteristic to all walkers units. In addition, you get +2 to advance and charge rolls made for them. But that's not all. You also can select up to 2 walker models from your army during the muster army step. So this is the step in which you are adding them to your list. They gain the character keyword. So not only are they then eligible to be assassinated, but as the designer's note says, helpfully here, you can also select to grant them enhancements and make them your army's warlord. The true all Dreadnought build is real. So we're looking at these Dreadnoughts that are moving up to move 8 or move 10, depending on the class of Dreadnought that you're taking. They're +2 OC on turn 1 once they start taking damage, and we'll talk about in a moment why it's very difficult to kill some of these things once you have begun to attack them. They're hitting on 2s with their attacks, re-rolling hit rolls of 1, and potentially also wound rolls of 1. You can back that up with Caladius Grav Tanks firing over top that again can also potentially be rerolling the hit rolls. The detachment ability alone for this detachment is a huge force multiplier for these units. Now, to be fair, it is hyper focused on walkers. I don't know how often you're super excited about taking Custodes walkers, but these statistical improvements basically shore up most of the issues that these vehicles had. So that, I think, while it might not in and of itself make it hugely competitive with more infantry-focused varieties of Adeptus Custodes, I think it at least adds them to the conversation. Now, let's talk about some enhancements that we can be giving these walkers. Now, most of the enhancements can be attached to any Adeptus Custodes model, and that's a cool thing about this detachment, is that while it is vehicle-focused, there is support for other units, incentivizing you to take a little bit more of a combined arms list. Adamantine Talisman grants you +1 attack, strength, and damage to your melee weapons. Solid. You should take this one on your smash guy. I think this is really good on not only like it's something like a Telamon Dreadnought, you could also give it to maybe a Contemptor Achilles if you really wanted to hit super hard. You could also give it to something like a Jet Bike Shield Captain who can be swinging with that additional damage plus Lance, and there is also some additional benefits to mounted units in this detachment too. Augury Uplink gives you a 5+ Feel No Pain. Windmill Slam this on a Telamon Dreadnought. He's 12 wounds, -1 damage, and a 5+ Feel No Pain. And there are additional defensive stratagems in this detachment too. You can make a Telamon Dreadnought ridiculously difficult to kill. I think that's exactly where this is going immediately. Honored Fallen is a relatively cheap enhancement, 15 points, but can only be assigned to a vehicle model. It then grants that vehicle model an aura of reroll hits of 1 for infantry. So if you're following your infantry up with a Dreadnought, he can teach them how to be better and give them hit rolls of 1. I think this is a pretty good one. It does, again, it sort of focuses on that combined arms theme, but I think it's going to be a little bit harder to play on the table because Custodes units don't generally like brick up quite as much. A lot of times you're sending individual units to go compete over objectives. I do think this is probably good on one of the lighter Dreadnoughts, maybe a Venerable Contemptor, because they can potentially respawn themselves, so you get multiple rounds of using the hit roll rerolls. That might be good in some situations. Veteran of the Cataphractoi is the cheap enhancement. It is a good one. It is only applied to an infantry or mounted model. In your movement phase, select one Adeptus Custodes vehicle or mounted unit within 6 inches of the bearer until the start of your next command phase. It can fall back and shoot. Again, this is any Custodes vehicle, so you can use this effect on things like Caladius Grav Tanks potentially to allow them to fall back out of combat. It doesn't let you charge, but you can use it to fall back and shoot with like a Virtus Praetors or something like that. This one's okay. The movement phase timing is really important, so you don't have to select in the command phase, which is a downside of a lot of these styles of enhancements. However, only fall back and shoot is not quite as exciting, and a lot of times you have to like sort of have infantry characters or mounted characters to follow around your vehicles, which I don't know how many of those additional characters you're going to be able to include. Maybe it's like a place for a Knight Centura, just like a cheap character that can run around and support your vehicles. That might be cool. But otherwise, I think this is mostly a points filler. Now let's move over to the stratagems, because the stratagem selection in this attachment is incredible. And that starts us really strong with the first one, Flawless Construction. You use it in either the shooting phase or the fight phase, targeting an Adeptus Custodes vehicle from your army, selected as the target of an enemy unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets the model in your unit, if the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than the toughness of your unit, subtract 1 from the wound roll. They've been given these bodyguard effects to almost every single one of these detachments. This one is no different, and it's great. Given the fact that Custodes vehicles tend to be of decent toughness, but not particularly high toughness, you're looking at a ton of like toughness 9 and 10. A lot of big anti-tank weapons are winning them on 3s. You can make them wound on 4s. And again, that could potentially be a Telamon Dreadnought that's protected by 2+ armor, 4+ infalm, -1 damage, and a 5+ Feel No Pain. and now -1 to be wounded. This guy's not going anywhere. Emperor's Vengeance is the next one, used in the fight phase after an enemy unit has selected its targets. Adeptus Custodes from your unit that was selected as the target can fight on death. Each time a model in the unit is destroyed, you roll a d6. On a 4+, you can fight after the attacking unit has finished making its attacks. If you are a walker, you get +1. Less exciting, still pretty good, because a fight on death on custodian models is solid, and it gives you a little bit of a last stand thing with the walkers. Unfortunately, it has a pretty solid chance of failing on the walker units, so you could be paying a CP to get literally nothing 33% of the time, because it only works on a 3+ on them, which is a little sad, but an automatic fight on death would probably have been too strong. Wrathful Advance is just a nice quality of life to have. You go D3 plus 3 inches on pile-in move. I think this might be pointed at like Contemptor Ackless Dreadnoughts, because they do mortal wounds when they're selected to fight, so they can charge into melee. If you punch your unit down low, then you selected Contemptor Ackless to fight, he kills them with mortal wounds, then piles in a bunch of time and fights somebody else. There's going to be a lot of uses where this gets kind of crazy, especially using like high OC wardens or something to like pile in into objectives and steal objectives and stuff like that. Very nice stratagem to have. I wouldn't say it's particularly transformative to the detachment, but it is just a good tool in the toolbox. One thing that is transformative to the detachment, however, is Unstoppable. Like I said, this is the Crusher Stampede we have at home. This is basically just a better version of the Crusher Stampede move through walls strat. You use it at the start of your movement phase. That is important to note. The timing is super important there because you use it before you roll any dice, importantly. So before you pick up any models to move, you have to declare that you're using the stratagem. You can't, for example, move a couple of your models, see where your advance rolls go, see where your positioning looks like, and then elect to use Unstoppable. You must declare it at the start of the phase. However, when you do, you select a Custodes vehicle or mounted unit. Like I said, there's more support for mounted units in this detachment. Until the end of the phase, models in the unit can move horizontally through models and terrain features. We can walk through walls with a Telemon Dreadnought. Now, the other downside of this is that it doesn't work in the charge phase. It's movement phase only, so it's a little different than on something like Knights of Shade. But given the fact that your Dreadnoughts are already faster with +2 movement, these guys are going to be able to hop terrain features easily. Now, I do think that this stratagem and some of the other ones in the detachment make it that it's going to be incredibly CP hungry. Almost wonder if you start including units like Quizzer Kodiaz or something in order to try to regenerate some of those command points, because I do think you're probably using this stratagem almost every single turn. Relentless Persecution is the next one. Use it in your movement phase after an Adeptus Custodes vehicle unit from your army advances. Until the end of the turn, you are eligible to shoot. Great for a Caladius Grav Tank. It can use its fast movement plus an advance roll to get around corners, to get weird lines of sight, to rapid ingress, and then get a shot. So you can always hit people with that big gunshot. However, if you have the Walker keyword, you are also able to declare a charge after advancing. So we are, for 2 CP, we could take our Telemon Dreadnought. Its movement is improved from 8 to 10. It can advance with +1 because of the detachment ability, then shoot its flamers, kill a bunch of infantry, kill your screen, and charge also at +1 with the movement going through a wall. So you can start behind a wall, move like 14 inches, 15 inches on average, then charge an average of like 8, and also have shot your gun. These Dreadnoughts are so fast in this detachment. It's insane. These 2 stratagems, Unstoppable and Relentless Persecution, in addition to the speed buff, basically shore up the biggest weakness of Custodian Dreadnoughts, which is the fact that they cannot get anywhere. These 2 stratagems have solved that problem, albeit at the expense of basically all your CP. Punishment Inescapable is the last one, certainly not the least one. Use it in your shooting phase on an Adeptus Custodes unit that has not yet shot. The ranged weapons gain ignore cover and ignore ballistic scale characteristics and hit roll modifiers for that turn. Shoots right through smokescreen. Get wrecked, smokescreen. Pretty good for the Caladius Grav Tanks. Also pretty good for the infantry units. If you have like a Kyria Draxus, Sentinel Storm Brick, then you can get ignore cover and just blast somebody. Just solid, just a solid stratagem. So like I said, this detachment has so much support for these walker units. It's absolutely nuts. These big Dreadnoughts are incredible in this detachment. So let's talk about exactly how we're going to be using it on the table. Okay, so we are over here in our new recruit. Look at this list. There's no character slot. What's up with that? So here's how I built out my version of Solar Spearhead, focused very heavily on vehicles. Now I have a Custodian Guard unit. They are, if we go down to the bottom here, they're going to be attached to Inquisitor Draxus. So this is the classic combination. We're not breaking any new ground with this unit in particular. The Custodian Guard, while they're touching an objective, get wound rerolls. Inquisitor Draxus has 10 2-damage ranged attacks. She loves wound rerolls. You can give this unit ignore cover as well, which is huge. This is basically going to be one where a lot of our infantry sweeping comes from. If your opponent has a bunch of screens, you can jump out the Custodian Guard, shoot, touch an objective to get rerolls, shoot one unit, use their Sentinel Storm, shoot a second unit, all ignore cover, just blast a bunch of people to death. Pretty solid. That also gives you a good melee counterpunch because the Custodian Guards are getting wound rerolls on objectives as well in melee, and they have a bunch of 2-damage melee attacks. So theoretically, if we present a front line of Dreadnoughts, we can have these guys sitting in the back to jump out, shoot twice, and then charge something and kill it, is the idea. We also, as a bit of a counterpunch as well, have 3 Caladius Grav Tanks. I think this might be overkill. I don't know. You could probably drop to 2 and take more Dreadnoughts and more support, but I like the Grav Tank for their ability to trade shots with other heavy targets. You can be -1 to be wounded, so it's difficult for the other attacker to kill you back, and that just unlocks hit rerolls for you, and then you're even more effective. One or two of these probably start in Strategic Reserve and then hop out to shoot at targets of opportunity. Theoretically, stuff will come out to attack the Telemon Dreadnoughts, and the Caladius Grav Tanks can counterpunch and kill them. We then have some support, a Prosecutor unit to hold the backline, as well as a Witch Seeker squad. I originally had more Witch Seekers, but I cut them in order to get enhancements. We also have a Psychana Rhino that is an Adeptus Custodes vehicle, so you can use things like -1 to be wounded on it. So it's actually kind of tougher to kill than it looks, and it can regenerate its hit points, so it has the opportunity to take damage, then go back up to full strength and be OC4. It's OC4 at starting strength. This little guy is really good at just being a little utility thing. It can like run up, grab an objective, do some actions. It can scout if you put the Witch Seekers in it. We then have all the Dreadnoughts, 2 Contemptor Galatus and 2 Telemon Heavy Dreadnoughts. I think I put melee weapons on the Telemon Dreadnoughts. I think that's where our enhancements go. We can give one of them the 5+ Feel No Pain, who will likely be the Warlord. The other one can get the +1 attack, strength, and damage. That puts the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought's profile to, once he has 2 Castus equipped, 8 attacks at strength 14, AP 2, damage 4. That's a lot. They also have they also have the plasma projectors and the bolt launchers, so they have a pretty decent amount of anti-infantry shooting, so they can shore up our infantry firepower too. Basically, we want to be presenting this huge front line of Dreadnoughts, use those to soak damage, and then kill people with the Grav Tanks and the Custodian Guardsmen. We then have 2 Contemptor Galatus Dreadnoughts. These guys are -1 to be wounded from melee attacks. You could also use the Strat if you need to be -1 to be wounded from ranged attacks, and they have a 4+ invuln save, so it's a huge front line of high toughness, 2+ save, 4+ invuln save vehicles. The Galatus Dreadnought also has a bunch of attacks as well, the Achilles Dreadnought, so they're better at infantry sweeping, which I think is the real weakness of the list. We have 3 Grav Tanks and a bunch of Telemon Dreadnought punching to kill heavily armored stuff. We need to kill infantry, and so having a Contemptor Galatus with 8 melee attacks, as well as Flamer Shot as well, these guys are going to be able to help out in that capacity, at least to some extent. We also have a Calidus Assassin in here. I think one of the weaknesses of a list like this, with especially how expensive Custodian Guard are to begin with, and then also a vehicle-focused Custodian army, we're taking a Calidus Assassin in order to shore up our scoring game. That's really the only reason that she's in there. I think that maybe the 3rd Grav Tank could drop. You could take another Dreadnought and another unit of infantry if you wanted just for scoring. I think that's probably the flex in the list, but generally speaking, it seems pretty tight. I don't know. This just seems like really good straight up Warhammer 40,000. You're going to put your Dreadnoughts in the middle. You're going to hope your opponent puts their stuff in the middle, and then you're going to have a big fight, and then hopefully the Dreadnoughts win. Honestly, I think that's a perfect encapsulation of how Adeptus Custodes want to play the game to begin with. I also think that there's probably some argument to be playing more vehicles and just using the detachment abilities to sort of shore up a couple Dreadnoughts and Caladius Grav Tanks, but you still take 1 to 2 like Warden units. That also could potentially be a build as well, but this is the one focusing on the vehicles that I wanted to try. So with that, that's all I have to say about the Solar Spearhead. Let me know down in the comment section what you think about this detachment. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Thanks as well to everybody who supports the channel, either over on Patreon at patreon.com/TacticalTortoise, YouTube channel membership that you can join down below the video, as well as Twitch subscribers. All you people help me keep the lights on over here. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming. Call me Rudolph this morning, because holy shit, my nose is red.